Our guest today is Miss Irene Teodor from GRS, Romania. Hello, Mr. Irene Teodor. We are glad to be here with you today.
Hi, I'm happy to be here today.
Who are the migrants and why they make this decision?
Is this a question specifically related to Romania or in general?
In general.
Okay. Well, it's a very complex question. I've thought a lot about this. It's very hard to answer it because I think it's a fact that migration has been a feature of human existence for centuries. It's basically one of the things that it's one of the consequences of modernization and one of the causes of modernization. So I think it's so ingrained in who we are as a species that it's very hard to pinpoint it. But if I have to, factors which would be more along the lines of economic migration, people moving to find work or follow a career path, social migration, people who are moving somewhere for general in their circle who have already migrated, political migration or environmental causes, which we think will be higher and higher in the future. So I think we could fit the macro factors into these categories, but if we see it from a historical perspective, it's much more complicated.
In Romania, from which country do migrants came from and what are their expectations?
In Romania, it depends on which migrants you refer to. If we talk about people fleeing their countries of origin because of persecution or because of war, these are what we call refugees who are asylum seekers in Romania. And this is a very dynamic field. The countries of origin of these people change all the time. So last year, for example, most people who sought asylum in Romania have been people from Afghanistan because of the recent developments in Afghanistan. People from Iraq, people from Syria, these are the main three categories of people who are searching for asylum. If we talk about other types of migrants, economic migrants, people coming for generally a better quality of life, we have a more varied palette. We have people from India, people from Vietnam, from the Philippines. We have a lot of people generally from the Maghreb area. I think we have people from all around, but these are the main categories. And I think their expectations, I think they base their expectations pretty much on what their relatives tell them about these countries or their friends or generally their social network, the people who migrated here first and then are encouraging the others to come as well. So I think they manage their expectation based on other people's experience. I think generally and no matter the reason why they left their country of origin, I think they are expecting a better life here, whatever that means.
What are the main challenges faced by migrants in Romania?
I think they are the same challenges as the immigrants are facing everywhere. I think you have the classic challenges, language barriers, a lack of employment opportunities or adequacy of jobs. You have lack of housing or a general issue with housing, be that quality of housing or simply not enough housing is available, or there is discrimination happening against migrants in housing. You have cultural differences, no matter how close people are, for example, because it's fresh, people from Ukraine, they are very close to us culturally, religiously, socially. Still, there's a huge cultural barrier here, which is an effective challenge for them. Another challenge is raising children in an immigration context, prejudice that they face in anything they do, the lack of a support system. This is generally true for any country anyone migrates to. When you leave your country of origin, you leave behind a support system. And I think this is one of the hardest things that migrants in general have to face. I don't know, access to childcare or recognition of qualifications and experience. I think this would be the most common challenges faced by migrants everywhere, but also in Romania.
How can we integrate immigrants in our society, and how does the Romanian state intervene or helps the immigrants?
This is another very difficult question as well. And I think it depends a lot on how a country or a society defines integration. I think Romania and most of the similar countries define integration as assimilation. I personally find this wrong. I don't think this is what integration truly means. I don't think this is what makes integration successful. But yeah, basically, I think we can integrate immigrants into our society by including them, but not in every aspect of our lives in this country, be it top down or from the grassroots. But not necessarily asking them to become, indistinguishable from the host society. This is my personal opinion. I think this is the way to go, and it's very hard to say exactly how this can happen because it depends a lot on very technical things other than concepts like the actual infrastructure of a state to help migrants do this, how much people in a certain country accept migrants or how they view them in everyday life apart from the state, how much certain industries are promoted, for example, education, or how much you facilitate this kind of migration to your country based on, for example, studies, how much you advertise it on the outside, how much you want this as a state, how much you invest in this, and how does the state intervene. In Romania, the state intervenes quite a lot, actually, which I think is a good thing. The state has a good infrastructure of integration. Basically, in Romania, you have like from 2011, I think, and starting with the increased involvement of the European Union in all things asylum and integration, and Romania accessing more funds and stuff like that. There has been a decentralization and more collaboration with NGOs in that area. So in Romania, you basically have the whole country split into regions, and one NGO with or without partners will win, let's say, a call for proposals, a project which handles integration in that particular region of the country. And this is a very good thing because as opposed to having one NGO doing it for the whole country, because you have local NGOs who are much more engaged with local authorities, with local communities doing this. So it's a very good thing. And the efforts that the NGOs do are complementary to the state. So the state basically operates this whole infrastructure. You have every person has let's say an integration plan. This is mostly for refugees, but not only, which basically in this individual integration plan, you have what this person needs to do or to follow, or what kind of services they need to access in order to ensure integration, Romanian language courses or cultural accommodation courses or stuff like that. And the state does provide this. So in this sense, it's quite good and the state intervenes a lot. It's a different discussion for people who are just economic migrants who come here to work. They don't benefit from as much integration as refugees or generally beneficiaries of international protection do. But I think compared to other states similar to ours, the state intervenes quite a lot, and at least we have a an interest in this and a general strategy towards this, and then individualistic approach, which is best in this kind of situation.
How do you think immigration is changing a society?
In general, you mean?
Yes.
I think sometimes everyone overestimates or exaggerates the way in which immigration can change a society. And I think this topic is very often used as a tool in political discourse, and in anti-migration agendas. And actually, I don't remember his name, but I remember reading a US sociologist who actually studied this premise, saying that he was studying the US and Latino presence in the US and how this changed American society. And I think it's a very good example, considering the numbers, just the numbers alone. And he basically asked if Latinos really changed the political and economic face of America. And basically after his research, he says that no, sure, there's more and more Latinos running for office, but for example, but they do follow the rules of the American political system. And while if you look at the society, at the face of it, if you look in the streets or look at the food that we eat, it might look different than it did 100 years ago, and you might have more elements taken from immigrant communities, but societies have not fundamentally changed, because for a society to change fundamentally, basically the migrants would need to have more power than the natives. And here he gives colonialism for example. For colonialism, it wasn't an issue of numbers, it was an issue of real power. And the thing is that most of our, as I said earlier, most of our contexts nowadays mean that migrants try to fit into our societies in order to survive prosperously, rather than, try to change the face of the society. So I don't really think that societies change fundamentally because of migration. I think it's the other way around. I think that migrants adapt to the societies they come to. Of course, there are benefits to this, benefits and things that are not beneficial, let's say. But these are more tiny things, superficial things. For example, evidence shows that immigrants provide significant economic benefits. But at the same time, there are also economic and social costs. So, yeah, this is what I think, basically. I don't think immigration changes the face of a society. I think people who say that are using this kind of discourse as a tool to advocate for a more strict migration policy, because hundreds of thousands of years of migration have showed us that unless the migrants have more power than the natives, a society doesn't fundamentally change.
What is the most important effect of migration that we don't think about it?
I think, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I think an aspect of migration that we don't think about enough, or we don't talk about enough, is that migration is such a normal process. I think we are so used of talking about it as a problem to be solved, as a debate. Usually it's framed as either a pro-migration debate, an anti-migration debate, a debate as to whether it's a good thing versus a bad thing. And I think this is a little bit ridiculous, because it's like debating whether trade is a good thing or a bad thing, rather than just a thing that is a normal part of society and that society cannot exist without. I think the whole human experience of urbanization and industrialization is based on migration. So the fact that some people like migrants and some people don't like migrants is not really the issue here. I think the issue is to understand that migration is really, it's driven by very deep changes in society. And it's such a normal part of our existence as a humankind race. And I think the fact that we don't think like this is the reason why we end up thinking that, you know, a stricter migration policy, for example, would actually translate into a stop of migration. And this is impossible because of the fact that it's such a fundamental part of our race, basically. And I don't know, I'm thinking now of an example to give, because maybe this is all a little bit philosophical. For example, so this is a world which is constantly changing, and people are constantly trying to move beyond what their countries can offer them. This is applicable to us in Europe as well. And for example, you have a student who is going abroad to study a field which is not taught in their country. This was my case as well. I migrated from my country to inside the EU, but it was because I couldn't find my field of study here in Romania. And most likely this student will not be able to find corresponding job opportunities either in his or her country of origin. So they will study in one place and then try to find a job in a different place. And I think this is the essence of and the nature of modernization. You know, it's not only the discourse that we see on television, where it's so black and white, and it's so it's just so I don't know. It's framed like migrants are lesser beings, and or just from a lesser societal position, that we forget that migration is the thing that happens in between cities as well, in between neighboring countries as well, and that it's such a fundamental part of our nature that it's not really up for debate. So I think this is for me at least, the number one aspect that we don't think about. And I think it influences a lot of what we, of how we deal with migration on a global scale.